You're listening to The Breakfast Show here on Faith FM with myself, Skafy, Dan here with me in the studio, and at the production desk we have two ladies today. We have producer Shell and producer Tish. It's nice to have you, Tish. It's your first time here today with us, is it?
This is my second time.
Your second time. Oh, when was the first time? I wasn't here.
I actually was.
You were here.
Surprisingly, I was here and you weren't, Skafy.
All right. Oh, what do you find most interesting about this whole production world that you're just stepping into now?
I love how much stuff is happening. It's so cool. There's screens everywhere, and it's the best.
All right. Well, there you go. Lots of screens here. So we get to know a little bit more about Tish throughout the show today, so she can tell us a little bit more about herself, so we can get to know her a little bit better. But thank you so much, Tish, for helping us here, pressing all of these buttons, because indeed there are many. We just talked about, we were talking about in our first segment about the story of Jacob and Esau. If you missed that, do not worry. You can catch up with our show notes. You can catch up particularly through the podcasts that are going to be released later today. But before we move any further here, Daniel is going to be bringing us a story about a very, very famous Christian author, Philip Yancey.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that shortly.
Yes, so there's some news about him, and we're going to be looking into that. But before we get into any of that, we are going to play another quiz game here. So quiz question number 3.
Where was Jesus when he quoted from Psalms 31, verse 5? Where was Jesus when he quoted from Psalms 31, verse 5?
Oh, man.
That is
I
difficult
can
because
quote it a little bit for you if you need it.
yes.
Into your hand I commit my spirit. Where was Jesus when he said those words? We've got correct answers coming in. Waiting for Skafy's answer. He's got it right as well. Where was Jesus when he quoted from Psalms 31, verse 5? Into your hand I commit my spirit. The number here, is 0491 064 669. Sorry, Dan, what?
I started typing something else until you gave that clue. The clue was very helpful and necessary
the
for
clue
me.
was very helpful as well, because I had another story in my mind as well. Because the reality is I did not remember which of his quotes came from Psalm 31 specifically.
Yeah, right.
He quoted two different Psalms, at least.
Oh, I'm sure many more.
During this time.
Oh, okay, yes,
at
sure.
At the specific time.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay,
yes,
at that
yes.
specific time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Speaking of which, the other psalm, should I say, or is it going to be
I think if you said it, it'll give away the circumstance.
Yeah, let's talk about it when we give the answer.
You could give the psalm number if you remember it.
Because I'm humming like one of the most beautiful songs here. I'm wondering if Producer Show could play that one for us today. You remember that song from Poor Bishop Harper?
Subtle cue in the next song break, maybe.
From Psalms 26?
No, from Psalm 22.
Oh, 22 is it?
It is 22.
Okay,
yes,
yep,
it is 22.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Well, maybe if you can play it. This is like one of my all-time favorite songs. I'm just not going to sing it. I'm not going to give it away the words because it's going to make it very obvious.
I will line that up when we give the answer.
Okay. Thank you so much. Very good. Then, right. What's happening with Philip Yancey? Yes. Yeah. Who's he and what happened?
So Philip Yancey is he started life out as a journalist, I understand, a Christian journalist. He was editor of Christianity Today, or one of the major journals in Christianity, and he's most well known for being a famous author. So I don't believe he was a pastor or led a church or anything, but he was a great writer, and he still is. He's alive. He's a great writer.
Very influential as well, because I have seen his books absolutely everywhere in Brazil, here.
And he's written a number of influential books. Probably the most famous, or at least the one that immediately comes to mind when I think of his name, is What's So Amazing About Grace, and which is a pretty cool title.
Very cool title.
Yeah, it's a play on the hymn Amazing Grace, and that's a good question. What is so amazing about grace? And his book really does bring to life God's grace. Great book. Apparently, I haven't read it, but I do have the book, and I've got some of the quotes that I'll share from it, which I think are great quotes. But people are questioning him as an author and what he wrote now, because what's come out just in the last couple of days, is news of an 8-year affair that he was having, and he confessed to it just over the weekend, and
Wow.
tragedy for his wife
he was
and family
married.
and
So he was
ministry.
married, but he had been having an extramarital affair for 8 years. So what made him come into come out of secret and into the public now?
Yeah, good question. And actually, I didn't find the answer to that question, whether he was caught or whether he was exposed and therefore came clean, or whether he just was under conviction and came clean. Look, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the reporting of it doesn't answer that question.
Get into those details. Yeah.
So, not that I've seen anyway. And to be honest, that really, it does not. I don't need to know.
Yeah.
But and look, to be honest, this looking at people, the dirt in people's lives is also kind of none of our businesses. No. We no one is perfect. People write useful and helpful things, maybe. But I think this does raise some questions about the things that he wrote. And I think, we can ask those questions.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting that what he actually said about his in his repentance. He said that this was a disqualifying sin. Like it meant that he needed to quit his ministry, he wouldn't be writing anymore. But he said that he still stands by what he already wrote and thinks that that's all still good, and he stands by it. But he just realizes that this coming out is kind of does disqualify him from being a respected commentator or author or sharer of the gospel and what grace is all about. So this raises some questions. Why, if grace is real, why is he disqualified? Like some of the things that he wrote. Grace means there is nothing we can do to make God love us more, and nothing we can do to make God love us less. And I think that's a true statement. If that's true, then if God doesn't love him any more or less based on this affair, why does he need to be disqualified? And it's interesting contrasting his case with David in the Bible. He had a secret affair, and it was found out, and that was quite similar offense, of quite similar sin. Yet David wrote some of his psalms, like Psalm 51, for instance, after that incident, and it wasn't disqualified from being king of Israel. Mm-hmm. So why do we disqualify Philip Yancey? Well, he's disqualified himself. He's come, admitted this and seen it as a disqualifying sin. And and where's the good news in this? Like, is grace real? The grace that he wrote about, that he talked about, another quote from him: the only thing worse than sin is the denial of grace. So, are we denying grace here by looking at his hypocrisy? We're all sinners. We're all tarred with this brush of sin, of hypocrisy. What is it about his sin that is disqualifying, or isn't it? Like, is grace real? Like, what's the deal here? And I think there is some good news here. I think grace is real. I think we look at the Bible and we look at the story of David, and we realize that grace is real. And in Philip Yancey's case, grace is real. I'm not going to say 100% certain that he is going to be saved in heaven. Like he's got free choice. Who knows what his decisions are going to be from here. But
there's forgiveness.
Yeah,
for
totally.
him.
And
Yeah.
we can see that in the case of this current story, because his wife is standing by him. She's shattered. She's heartbroken, but she is going to stay. Well, she's the things that she's saying now. She's standing by her husband and committed to restoration. And let's hope and pray that works out for them. So yeah, what does this say about his teachings? Does it undermine it all? What do you think, Skafy?
Yeah, look, this is a great question, Dan, because yes, in people's minds, look, sometimes just by people reminding it, it can ask, okay, can I drink pure water from a contaminated source? So if he has been writing all these kinds of stuff while he's living in an extramarital affair, not saying anything, could I trust that during that time he had the Holy Spirit, and that all the things that he was saying, they were good? So some people can think about that from that perspective, and the reality is, I'm pretty sure that that has happened with people like Ravi Zacharias, for example.
Zacharias, yeah.
The demand for their materials
just drops off.
Just tanks after like a big scandal like that. A lot of people will get disappointed. That being said,
I think there is a difference between Yancey and Zacharias. And look, I'm splitting hairs here.
Yeah.
See, in Yancey's case, he wrote What's So Amazing About Grace before this affair.
Yeah.
So in Zacharias' case, I think he was behaving as he did all through his ministry, apparently.
And also, Philip Yancey came out in public and he confessed and he repented, at least apparently.
And
Rabbi Zachariah took his secrets
Yeah.
with him, so he was found out after his death.
Right.
That happened. But that being said, look, God's word is God's word. If I say, thou shalt, love the Lord your God and trust with him with all your heart, soul, and understanding. It does not matter if it's me saying, if it's Abraham saying, if it's a person highly intoxicated with alcohol, it's saying that the words of God are going to be true, irrespective of who spoke it, who wrote it, what is the context of the situation. Maybe we don't want to hear about what the drunk person in the street is talking about God, but if he's saying God's words and we with our hearts are open to it. So I think that the words themselves, I haven't read his books, but if his words are biblical, that I wouldn't say that they would be disqualified just because he fell into that sin.
There is something I would say about what we can learn from what he wrote, and I think what he wrote, the quotes that I read, they're good, they're helpful. But I think there is one thing that about his writings that I think we can learn from, and that is I think that he maybe overemphasized grace and overemphasized the. How can I say this? That we don't really need to conform or comply or behave and
yes, because the overemphasis is grace is cheap grace.
Yeah, and I think that's a risk here. I'm not saying that's the cause, but it definitely is a risk. But the good news here is that there's a second chance. We can make new beginnings. Grace is real. And for Philip Yancey, there's a chance for a new start. For you, listener, there is a chance for a new start, no matter what you've done. So it's good. It's good news. Right. It's a good news story, even though it's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, grace is real, and to use his quote, it is amazing.
Yeah,
still, it doesn't matter. So let's get hold of God's amazing grace, not to make cheap of it, but to repent, to learn, to move forward, to shake the dust, and to renew our commitment to follow God's and His law.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Based in Psalm 31, that was exactly the psalm that Jesus quoted when he was where, Producer Shell?
He was upon the cross.
He was upon the cross, so well done I think we got a couple of correct answers here from Janelle, Lee, Vernon, Deanne, all of them got the right one.
Well done.
We also have a message here that was sent by Bruce. He said, it's really hard when you have sinned to receive grace and forgiveness, for you feel so unworthy.
Yeah. The good
point.
news is that God's promises of forgiveness do not depend on our feelings.
Yeah.
They are true.
Absolutely.
And our feelings can be whatever they are, but as we believe the truth of God's forgiveness, our feelings will follow.
And it's often much easier for us to forgive others than to forgive ourselves.
Yeah.
But we need to learn also how to forgive ourselves. It's the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, if by forgiving your neighbor you're loving them, is not also the case that by forgiving yourself you're also loving yourself.
Right.
And I learned a few things about forgiving yourself. Maybe I'll give one tip, but after we talk about that, we can go back to that in our 8 o'clock segment. So if you'd like to learn or if you'd like to hear a tip about how to forgive yourself, I'm going to give you a hot tip, like a pro tip on how to forgive yourself. for someone that had to do that multiple times, and I still have, which is myself. but I know that a lot of people can struggle with that, and there I'm going to share with you the advice that I give to people when they are in that situation as well. If you're interested, at 8:00 you can pop by, and we are going to talk about that. I now want to change the subjects here, Dan, and I want to talk about Donald Trump's latest remarks on Greenland. So, in the beginning of his mandate, and even I don't know if probably even before that, Donald Trump was, he mentioned a few things that were, at least, people didn't really take him very seriously about. One of them saying that he was going to annex Canada as the 51st state of the United States. And the other one that he was going to annex Greenland to the U.S. territory. And he said that, and people laughed, and nobody really believed it, and some people criticized, and that kind of a subject died out. But now, particularly after the military operation that in Venezuela, that had Nicolas Maduro being brought to the United States for a trial, on Friday, Donald Trump issued a brand new remark on Greenland. And that time, I think that his words were way more forceful than in the first times that he was just touting the idea around. I'm going to ask producer Shell if she has the clip there to play for us. Not yet. Are you getting it ready? Yeah. So producer Shell is getting the clip ready. So Donald Trump, he was in a press conference, in a press meeting, and one of the journalists asked, "Hey, President Trump, in terms of Greenland, how much are you offering to pay them to purchase Greenland?" And you listen to Donald's response in a short while here.
Are you thinking of giving people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
All right. So that was the statement that came in on Friday.
But the pandemonium in the press room, that's fascinating.
That's right. People were really, curious about it and try to understand what's happening. And we have been talking a little bit about that. We're living in a new global order in many ways. And I think that we're becoming closer and closer and closer to the scenarios that the book of Revelation describes to us.
And Daniel.
Both Daniel and Revelation. And all of them, basically, the logic is this. Look, if we don't do it, if we don't take that territory, our enemies will take the territory, and we cannot afford that. And we also come in a world where, for example, if Russia is taking territory, why can I not take that territory? If China has already been very, very clear about they also wanting to take back to take Taiwan as a territory, because they claim to have always been theirs, and it's a rogue republic that they want to be back as well. So again, Donald Trump's asking, hey, we also need to annex Greenland, because otherwise Russia or China will do it. Greenland currently, it is a territory of Denmark.
Yeah.
And it has a pretty long story. And one of the remarks that Donald Trump made in his discourse says, just because Denmark parked a boat there 500 years ago does not mean that they own the land. And a lot of people in the internet were saying, hey, can we say this to the American Indians as well? But there's a difference. The only difference is that, in this rhetoric, what earns you the right to keep a territory is if you have the power to keep it. That's the underlying narrative that is under there.
If that was the narrative, then the whole world belongs to America, because it's got the power to take the whole world if it wants to.
If they want to, right? So there is definitely a lot of people are concerned with what's going to happen in that space. Just a brief story of Greenland. Greenland, 90% of Greenlanders are Inuits. They're not Danish.
right.
They're not European descent. Because the Inuits were actually the original people that were there when the first European arrived in Greenland in about in the 10th century. So it was a name named Eric the Red. Speaking of the Red, there's another red, big red in history.
And his name started with
Yeah, but
with
he was
four-letter
not
name?
not a Danish. He was I believe Norwegian, and then went to the Iceland, and then finally he sailed there. When he got to Greenland, it was very interesting because he found located a fjord or two that he could build a hut or a house. And he came back home saying, "Hey, I found this amazing place, so lush, so beautiful. I'm even calling it Greenland. Don't you want to start your life there?" And people say, "Yeah, that sounds great." And when I went in there, it's basically pure snow everywhere. So that was one of the first sales scams, I think, in history. Naming Greenland because there's nothing green in Greenland. In Greenland, and they stayed there for about 500 years. Then basically the Inuit people groups they retook that part of the land, but they also dwindled in number over time, and Denmark just saw hey, there's basically a bunch of unoccupied land. Let us start building some presence there. So today Greenland is mostly an independent territory for all of their internal affairs, but their foreign policy is dictated by Denmark. And but to be honest, there's a very strong movement that the Greenlanders, they don't want to be neither Danish nor Americans. They just want to be Greenlanders. They want to be their own country, have their own independence and sovereignty. But of course, all of that is at stake. I found that it's very interesting because when I look at the Bible, there's some interesting things of how the ancient peoples in the ancient Near Eastern, how did they annex land? Have you ever thought about how did Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, how did they get land? And in the ancient times, there was a few ways that you could do that. Number one, you could you could outright buy land for cash.
Yeah.
Abraham did that. He bought the oak in Mamre area where he buried Sarah. So he bought a big property there with cash from the Canaanite groups that were living there, from one of the Canaanite kings. But another way to claim unoccupied land was building wells.
Right.
Because wells in the ancient world were the equivalent to a petrol station today.
Yeah.
Particularly in that area in the Middle East, there was always been a lot of foot traffic, or may I say, camel toes traffic in that region, because camel feet traffic, because it was linking Egypt to Asia Minor and Babylon and all that. Everybody that needed to go from one of these big powers to another place, they needed to go through Israel area. And when you have a well, this is where you park your camels. They're getting some water. Well, when the travelers are there, not only you're offering water, but you might offer them some food, some clothing. You can sell them things. They're going to be selling their things that you can sell later on. So these wells ended up becoming trading outposts.
So you could say whoever develops the infrastructure for the
That's right.
land
If you're
has
developing-
claim for
That's
ownership.
right.
And Greenland is an interesting case because there's not a huge amount of infrastructure there. The current population there, I just looked it up, it's 56,000 people. So there definitely is some
Very
established.
tiny.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's tiny.
Yeah, and there was a theory that if Donald Trump would pay $50 billion for that, they would divide it. So each person would receive $5 million and become an instant millionaire with an American passport and so on. Those ideas have been floated around. Another interesting thing, so there is that. But you see, for example, in the story of Isaac was the builder of the patriarchs. He built tons of wells. If you read Genesis
Right.
chapter 25,
Interesting.
26,
Yeah.
everywhere he went, he was building wells. But then the local tribes, they would come and they would dispute with him. Because you needed wells also if you were herding sheep, because that was a source of water that they can rely on. But then every time that a Canaanite group would come and dispute with Isaac, what did Isaac do? He just moved on and opened another well. And then another people group would come and dispute and fight with him. And then he'd go and open another well. So he was doing all of these. He's building all of these infrastructures in the land, and people are coming. But the interesting thing is that Abraham could have taken land by force. He had a small private army of 300 strong men. He defeated kings with it, but he never used it. Isaac inherited all of that, yet he never used it. When conflict arose, he just moved on to the next one because these patriarchs knew that one day the land was going to be theirs because God said, but it was not going to be neither by power nor by might, but by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
they knew that God was going to give it to them in a way that was not going to be through them displacing them from the land.
A lesson for Donald Trump.
So I think that's a lesson for us. How many things do we want to get, and we are trying to get them through, anger, through coercion, through whatever the means is, through impatience. And God says, hey, do you want to get a good gift from God? Get it in the way of God, which is through love, through patience, through kindness, through the Spirit of God, and not through power or might.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
We're now going to be having a conversation with our friend Justin Lawson, our political correspondent from Canberra and commentator. But first things first, Justin, how is the state of your desk? Are you going to take hold of the World Desk Cleaning Day today, or your desk, is always nice and tidy?
Well, this is my first day back to the office. I'm sitting on the side of the road near Yass at the moment, driving into Canberra. My desk is really clean because I haven't been in my office, mate.
There you go.
Or at least
I hope it's clean. I haven't seen it, so...
There you go. So, Justin, tell us a little bit about what's happening in the world. So there's a lot that has been going on since Friday.
You reckon?
Yeah. So there's Iran. There's stuff going on in Iran. There is Renee Goods, which is it's a bit of a herring story. I think that everybody in the United States, at least, cannot stop but to talk about her. Even the President Trump has been talking about her. Then there's the Greenland conversations. Can you help us understand what's happening?
Well, I don't know if I can help you understand, but I can give you my perspective on some stuff. But,
all right.
It's crazy. But which week do we have a quiet week where there's nothing happening?
It's rare, very rare.
It's really sped up. I guess the one that surprises me the most is Iran, our Persian brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. There seems to be a full-on revolution happening there, but the populace who are trying to take back their country from the 1979 revolution, the Islamic revolution that happened there, and it's a theocracy to this day. Economically, it's a basket case, and they are not traveling well. And we are seeing limited footage, and we're hearing limited reports because the cell phone system was shut down. The internet's been shut down for 6 hours this time. They've done all this before, trying to prevent communication happening internally and probably communication getting out to the rest of the world. But the government forces seem to be fighting back against this, the populace rising up. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be quite a few deaths and killings happening. So we need to pray for that situation because the freedom to preach the gospel in that country has not existed for a long time. Yeah. And it would be great if there could be a window here where the people get real freedom. Absolutely. Real freedom. Absolutely. That would be a wonderful thing.
And there's a few documentaries. Actually, there's one documentary called Sheep Among Wolves where there are interviews with secret Christians in Iran, because Iran has even though Christianity is absolutely prohibited, you will get hanged in a public square in Tehran if they found out that you became a Christian from a Muslim background. But their underground churches is really thriving. They're actually sending missionaries to Israel to bring the gospel there. And one statistic that I have here, Justin, it's not a super new statistics, but it's not old. It's from the end of 2023. Do you know how many mosques there are in Iran in total?
I have no idea.
So there, in total in Iran, there's 75,000 mosques. Do you know how many have closed down? 50,000 of them.
Wow.
So 50,000 out
Oh,
of
wow.
75,000 mosques have already shut down because of lack of attendance. People are they're just fed up with it. They don't want to go anymore. They don't want to have anything to do with it anymore.
You imagine if you're, because we understand politics more than a theocracy here. It's never long that a governing power is popular. Like, it's very quick for the Prime Minister to be riding on a high, and next thing you know, everyone despises him.
Yeah.
And they've had 47 years of rule over there. People have had enough, and they want their freedom. They want their freedom. So it's an important thing for the listeners to be praying about Iran and the freedoms that could come to the people of that. It's got such a history right through Scripture, Old Testament,
Incredible
right
country.
through. Incredible.
Let's move on then to what would you like to talk about next? Ice raids, Renee
Mate,
Goods, or Greenland?
Let's go to the ice raids and the tragedy that is Renee Goods, this 37-year-old mother. I think she has 3 kids, and it's such a silly thing to be dying for in my mind. So if we step back from what's the immediate thing that's happened, during Biden's presidency, they estimate there's around 15 million, maybe more, maybe less, 15 million illegal immigrants come into the United States, which is a lot. Trump's Immigration Customs Enforcement, which is where we get the ICE term, he has really empowered this guy with under Nomes, the leader of it there, to go in and particularly get the real criminal element of that group. But they're not exclusively just getting anyone that's involved in crimes. Anyone that came in illegally is open to be deported. And they're going right through the country, and they've turned up in the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, this is where George Floyd was killed by a police officer that led to all these riots. This place is a hotbed for revolution and riots. Renee Goods has been part of a group that seem to have been trained that are to block ICE as they go about their duties. And she's put her car in front of the ICE vehicles that are all unmarked, and the ICE agents have all got their faces covered because of the retribution that's happening to them and their families. So this is not good. So the police officer that in the end was he was in front of the vehicle. There's heaps of different video footage angles. They've grabbed her door, told her to get out of the car. She's accelerated away while this other police officer was in the front of the vehicle. He shot and killed her. And that has led to enormous backlash against ICE. The governor of the state of Minnesota, who's in a lot of
herself, or was she?
No, she's an American citizen. She's an Anglo lady who is an American citizen.
Wow.
Her wife, and I'm not going to unpackage that anymore. Her wife was right beside the vehicle, egging her on, saying, "Drive, baby, drive." And she says that she got her involved in this anti-ICE movement. So the statement by the governor, I think, is one of the most disturbing things I've heard. The governor said after this that he is going to mobilize could mobilize the National Guard against ICE.
Wow. Wow.
That's a civil war.
Yeah.
That's how close they are on all this stuff. This isn't going to stop. Trump's side aren't going to stop deporting people. They've put 2,000 more ICE officers in that city after this incident. So it's really on the edge.
It's a real powder keg.
In some of these.
Yeah.
Yep. the blue states where they crazy thing found themselves in a situation. Tragedy for Renee and her children that now her life's been taken over. I think this is silly. There's other ways to go about things than trying to block police doing their jobs, whether you agree or don't agree.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Absolutely. Wow, that is a very sad story, and as you mentioned, it's already coming from an area that it's a hotbed for revolution and civil unrest in the United States. So let's wait and see. If things are going to calm down, or if that's going to be some more big national.
Well, this is the state where all the Somali immigrants have been involved in this $9 billion fraud thing that they're pursuing. Yep, and there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
and
that's also the state from where Tim Walz used to be the governor, wasn't he?
Well, he's still the governor, but he's not going to run again.
Is.
Yeah, he's not going to run again. But he's still the governor.
Also, he was the one challenging Trump and threatening to use the National Guard. The thing is, can the states do the states have the authority to mobilize the National Guard, or is that something just from that can only
the states run the National Guard. The Texas has its own National Guard. Minnesota, California, they all have their own National Guard. Because the federal government is not allowed to have troops.
Okay. Inside of
put out against their own citizens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
It's America's very different in their mentality. Like this attempted revolution going on in Iran, the reason Americans want to keep their guns in the Constitution is so they can rise up against their own government.
Yeah.
So they have a different mentality to what the average us in the way we look at governments and how we would overturn a government.
Yeah, wow. That is very interesting. And tell me, what do you think about this whole conversation about Greenland, that the United States is going to get Greenland the hard way or the easy way? What's going to happen there, and particularly with NATO, because Greenland is part of Denmark, which is part of NATO. So we would have one NATO country invading another NATO country if it's
the hard way.
If it's the hard way, so that would be.
I think Trump's he'll talk him around to some deal before he gets to the hard way. But don't underestimate the age in which we're living. He'll do it the hard way. The bigger question to me, I think Greenland's a done deal. I think he's going to get it. I don't know how, but he's going to get it because this Monroe Doctrine, where they want this hemispherical defense.
The Don Roe Doctrine, they're calling it now.
Well, I tell you, Canada is a bigger question. Because after they've got Greenland, they've got Venezuela, they're going to do Colombia, they're going to do Cuba, in my opinion.
Oh, man.
Canada. Yeah. Canada. Oh, because Trump said, if you got to listen to this guy. You just listen to what he says.
Yeah.
He says there's more fentanyl coming across the border from Canada than there is from Mexico at the moment. Like stuff like that. That's just not a statement made in jest. They've got a plan here. And that is the bit that really troubles me. How's Canada going to play out?
Yeah. And look, and back in the days, I think that the U.S. politics would accomplish these kinds of goals, but in a more covert way. So they put like some military bases there. But now is everything so much up in the front. Even I think the statement when President Trump says that we're getting the oil back from Venezuela and we're going to run it, we're going to invest it. Back in the day, the same thing would have happened in Iraq. But like George Bush, for example, he never mentioned oil any time. It was always about weapons of mass destruction and so on. When push comes to shove, it ended up being a lot about oil.
Yeah.
But at least it was not overtly so.
Whereas Donald Trump
says it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Domestically, I don't think the needle will be moved either way if they take Greenland. The Trump supporters will support it. The Trump enemies will not.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it's going to shift the needle domestically. So they just plow on.
Very good. And look, Justin, you mentioned here, you always mention how, when we're seeing what's happening with the United States, we clearly see why the United States is the last superpower from a Bible perspective in the book of Revelation. I do actually have a Bible study here about America in Bible prophecy. If you've never seen with your own eyes what the Bible has to say about the United States 2,000 years before it even became a nation, you can text me here with hashtag USA to 0491 064 669, and I'll send a Bible study about America in Bible prophecy straight to your inbox. So by the time that you listen to this show and when you listen to what's going on the news, you will be able to recognize that the time is being fulfilled, the prophecies are being fulfilled, and the time is near. Justin, thank you so much. What are you going to be talking about in your show this week?
Well, we covered Greenland and all that stuff in the Monroe Doctrine this last week. We'll be picking up. I think it's going to happen in the next couple of days. So
all right.
We can't make a decision on a Monday.
A lot of things can happen.
We're out of date.
So Friday, 4:30 p.m. here on Faith FM, you can listen.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.